Hello, friends. So happy to have you here with us today at Radical Joy. If you've been here before, welcome back. If this is your first time with us, we're glad you're here. Each Wednesday, we're here with you talking about things that weigh on our minds and hearts. Hoping if you're dealing with something similar, we can adjust our perspectives as you listen. The more people I meet and the more places I go, the more I realize how important it is to make people aware of the fact that there is no shame in enjoying the parts of your life that are incredible. It's time for some radical joy. And this week, the three fingers pointing back at us are for our guest, Natalie Mathis. Welcome, Natalie.
Hello. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
First and foremost, I just want to make sure that anyone listening, we have both video and audio on this, and I just want to make sure that I paint a beautiful picture about the person I'm looking at right now. What I see first and foremost in the middle of the frame is this gorgeous smile, framed by the most incredible dimples. And not only does she smile with her teeth, she smiles with her whole body, because whenever she smiles big, her shoulders go up. There's this beautiful red hair with these fantastic blonde curtains, okay? And she's wearing like a black tank and she has some very tasteful, but make no mistake, badass tattoos.
Yes.
Just so everyone knows whom I am looking at while we talk about these wonderful things today, I just want to draw you a very vivid picture. There's
Thank
one
you.
thing to be talking about joy. It's another thing to have someone in the studio that so far has basically personified it for me. And knowing just a little of the history of this marvelous individual is so thrilling for me because I know that this goes to show that your life doesn't have to be wine, roses, chocolate, and love letters to still have this wonderful radiance about you so that others around you know that you were not hindered. It was just one more thing for you to grow through. Welcome, Natalie Mathis.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. That was so beautiful how you put that because I feel like sometimes when I discuss the past it's like very ugly and it's like I don't give myself enough grace with it, but it's like it truthfully was just another thing that my body carried me through. And yeah, speaking of personifying joy, it's so funny that you say that because I feel like for a very long time I was kind of a pessimistic person. And it took me a long time to realize that like today joy has to be a choice for me because I will quickly sink into myself. And I don't like that feeling and I don't like projecting that out either because it's typically very negative. And I don't like bringing that to the table anymore. Like I think for a very long time that was the only thing I thought I had to offer, but now I realize that like I can offer all types of things.
Yes. And the thing that I love about your specific brand, again, it's just one of those things where it's a first impression sort of thing. It's not flippant. The joy that you bring to this table, to this forum, is very intentional. I encounter a lot of people in my day-to-day life, and I love it. It's one of the things that I love so much. And some people you can see that it's a very surface type thing, which is fine. Some
Mm-hmm.
people have a very specific type of joy that is very much on the upper layers. Whenever I encountered you, it was one of those things where you could tell that this was not just the top layer, but there were several stories down that told a story of a richness and a depth that made this not just the fact that I have the luxury of being joyful because my life is perfect, but knowing a little bit of your story, I have grown to do this. I have taken the nourishment of so
Mm-hmm.
many different colors of my experience to cultivate this joy. And it is very much a choice of what I put out for the world to see and how I help others through it.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I don't know which way to kind of jump in.
Allow me then. I'm so sorry. We talk about these vague things, and I'm so sorry. Natalie's with us because our producer Carrie Lynch, whom I trust with my life,
Yeah,
make no
yes.
mistake. She says this is someone with whom I need you to speak. She says I need her to be on the show because A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and she says another thing is that Natalie is dealing and has dealt with addiction in her life,
Mhm.
and to meet this person after hearing what I've heard is a very different thing. You get a very specific preconceived notion.
Mhm.
And then you actually meet the person and you're like, Oh, I was completely off base. This is one of those things where you see someone who has clearly thrived after going through a harrowing difficulty and continues to thrive because, just like you say, the joy that I present is a daily choice.
Mhm.
My overcoming is a daily choice.
Mhm.
And so, if we could, we'll just jump right into the meat of it. We'll just say,
Yeah.
would you mind sharing with our listeners a little bit more about those choices and what it is that you overcame to get to this very specific intentional spot?
Absolutely. So I just want to be so forthcoming and just tell everyone that I am a recovering alcoholic and I am a recovering addict. I'm grateful that my generation there's less hush hush about it. It's more common to, not just with addiction but mental health, go out there and find the help that you need. And so when I realized I had a problem, I felt comfortable talking about it. And that's why I'm always like very much like, I would rather someone know that that's something that I have experienced and dealt with, that maybe I can help the next person who needs help with those kinds of things, because I do believe that some people feel a lot of shame around it until they understand what it is. Um, for me, drugs and alcohol were a huge part of my upbringing. I came from a family of drinking and partying, and like that was the thing to do. And I think I thought it was normal. And then, I went to art high school, and I went to a conservatory for college, and I did all fun arts things with a lot of fun artsy people. And it was a very kind of social thing to do there too, was to, drink some, smoke a little weed. But I quickly realized within myself that it was never enough. Like I needed to go heavier and higher, and I had to maintain this like sense of not all the way being in my own like body. And so something I've really learned is that like the heavy drug use and the heavy alcohol use was really a mere symptom of the fact that I didn't like myself very much. Um, it's one of those things that like the best way it was ever I heard someone else describe it was that like, they felt like when they showed up to life that they like missed the syllabus day and they didn't understand how to do anything. And that is how exactly how I felt. And so the only way how I knew to cope with anything was drugs and alcohol. And so once I had removed the drugs and alcohol and realized that like I was physically addicted, I also realized I used those things to mask the fact that like I don't know how to do anything, I have no coping skills, I don't like myself very much. And so it's like I feel like, getting off, you know, I will say getting off drugs and alcohol was hard physically because I did have to go to detox. It was in the middle of the pandemic that this happened, and it was a very kind of scary time. I'm not trying to
Oh,
be like
wow. Yeah.
graphic, but like I, it was so funny. It's like as soon as theater shut down, and I didn't have that like sense of responsibility to really anything, I went off to the races. I was like, I can do whatever I want now. I'm free until theater comes back or until I can get a job again or X, Y, and Z. And it got very bad very quickly, physically wise. And so, yeah, that's kind of like the first step is I had to really come off of it physically. And then as my brain reset and my spirituality reset, I realized that that was just the surface of what was going on. So yeah, I don't
Yeah.
I might pause for a sec to let you comment. I'm sure I just like spit out a lot, but
No, you're great. No, no, no. That's just it because this is your story. I have nothing to add to your story. It's just whenever you reach a breathing spot, what I want to do is just say that's so intimate. That's so personal. Thank you for sharing that with us. I think that so many things that you said in that are so relatable
Mhm.
to so many people. The longer I live, the more I realize that there are people out there, lots of people who are coming to face fact with the fact that they just don't necessarily like themselves a
Yeah.
lot and are having to figure that out. And that is just amazing to me because me looking from the outside in, I see this person who is accomplished, who is intelligent, who is talented, witty, all these things that make them so valuable in my community, in my tribe. And then to hear them talk about themselves like that, it's almost hurtful to me because, like, how could you talk about you like that? That's my
Yeah.
friend you're talking about. What are you saying right now? That is
Right.
just like, it's almost hurtful. But then I have to realize this is not that, it's not my thing. It's not
Yeah.
mine to own. It's just me trying to be like, okay, instead of getting frustrated and huffy about it, which is almost my
Mhm.
thing, it's just like, I hear what you're saying. I'm sorry you feel like that. Please understand that me, as someone who looks at you from a very different perspective,
Yeah.
thinks one, two, three, four about you. And I just want to make sure I continue to reinforce those things until you move yourself into a place where maybe you can be more gracious. Like you said, give yourself some
Yeah.
grace
Mhm.
with yourself so that you can move into a place where you are open and ready to like yourself, hopefully as much as I like you, because I think you're the bee's knees
Thank you.
kind of thing.
And I definitely, it's so funny. It's like I definitely feel like it's gotten better. And kind of I kind of just saw what Carrie put in the group chat, and what she brought up was
Mhm.
masking. And that's really kind of what I was doing. Like, what I feel now, like how present I am now and how happy I am now, or even if I'm not happy, like today I am happy, but like life still goes on with or without me, like being present. So it's like I I no longer am dishonest to other people about how I'm feeling, and I'm not dishonest to myself. Like, I think that's a big part of it, is lying to myself is still lying. And so constantly telling
Oh,
myself that, like, over and over again, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, is not the truth. Um and so I spent a lot of time masking behind, this facade of how I wanted other people to perceive me, and drugs and alcohol helped that a lot. Um
yeah.
but in my relationship with myself is ever changing. I would say that I like myself a lot more today than I ever have in the past, but there's still so much room for growth as I grow. And I
Mhm.
I truthfully believe you can never love yourself too much. Like, I am my own worst critic to this day still,
Yes.
and it's like I see myself give grace to other people, and people give grace to me, but I can't find it within me sometimes to give it to myself, and I'm like, why? Like,
Okay. Okay.
um, but it's, I also feel like I it's funny now because I used to mask behind like how driven and kind of how successful I wanted to be, of how much I was really actually suffering. Um,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of that came from a fear of what people would think about me, if, because it's like I probably knew I had addiction issues probably by the time I was 22. I'd started using when I was 15. So, like, I already had a pretty
Wow.
significant like using career, right? But I kept it going until like 24, 25, because I was like, okay, I can't let people know this about me. And that's what I meant by like the shame. So, like, when I had gotten in
Yeah.
enough pain, I was like, the mask has to come off. I have to be honest, not only with other people that I need help, but with myself. Like, I can't continue to lie to myself. Um, so
Good.
yeah, it's
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that no, that you're dropping so many beautiful seeds here, and I just want to make sure that we pick them up and plant each
yeah.
one of them, just to give it a little extra attention. Lying to myself is still lying, which goes hand in hand with that thing. I am so ready to give everyone else grace,
Hmm.
but when it comes to myself, I hold myself to an impossible standard.
Hmm.
And it is crazy to me to think about that. I am forgiving, I am lenient, I am loving, I am giving, kind, all of these wonderful adjectives to almost everyone else in my life. When it comes time to give that to the person where this entire thing is supposed to start, the origin, I am so hard on me.
It's
And it's just, And it's just, it makes no sense. If you literally write it down on paper and just look at it and try to read it objectively, you're like, this makes absolutely no sense why I would do that. I need to be kinder to me, this much mustard seed, itty bitty teeny tiny bit more to me
Yeah.
than I am to everyone else. Otherwise, I'm going to run out. I'm going to go empty, and then I've got nothing to offer everybody else. As long as I'm this much nicer to me than I am to everyone else, I can continue to refill that wellspring, and I will
Yes.
continue to have this resource for everyone else that I want to be a help to someone.
Mhm.
If it's possible, I want to be that person to step in and help. Carrie will also, she will say this about me. She's like, you've got a savior complex, and I hate it. I hate that she says that to me. I hate it because I know she's right. And that's not me bragging. That is a thing that is not good. That is a thing that
Yeah.
says I will give and give and give to others, and I will be so incredibly hard on myself.
Mhm.
And that's one of those things where I find in a lot of people I love that are very similar. I'm like, hey, what I see is this.
Yeah.
Not realizing that that advice comes right back home to roost with me as
Mhm.
well.
It's
And I hate that.
I know. It's like it's like until literally my cup is dehydrated, I then get reminded I can't pour from an empty cup. And like it's like why
Yes.
do I let it go that long? So like that's kind of where I am now. Is like I have had at this moment, I truthfully believe it is one day at a time, it is one choice at a time, but I have over 3 years of sobriety. Um and
Congratulations.
thank you. And I am just it's like the first couple years were all about like kind of seeing what the problems were and making small steps, but now I'm like it's time for some action. Like it's time to like, I combine doing 12-step recovery based meetings with going to therapy. Like these, I it's time to actively take a look at a lot of those things, and I think I like to mention those things because there is no shame. And I also probably will email you guys some resources, just like the National Alcoholics Anonymous like hotline and that kind of stuff, just to put up there for
Please.
people. Um,
We love to put those in the show notes.
yeah,
Yes. Thank you.
it just is. It's one of those things that I there's something that we say a lot that it's like progress, not perfection. And that's also something I've been like really trying to like dig my feet into, that like it goes back to even with wanting to be better, I hold myself to an impossible standard. And I'm like, why am I not fixed yet? Like, it's like, why am I not perfect
Okay.
yet? Um, but it's about the journey of getting there, I think. And I it doesn't feel nice in the moment, but when you get, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years down the road, you're like, wow, wait a minute. And that's where I've been able to
Yeah.
like kind of love on myself a little bit, is in reflection. So I would love to bring that loving on myself in the reflection moments to like a present moment too. Does that make sense? Like kind of spreading it all the way around.
Absolutely. Of course, because a reflection moment to me, from the way that you're if referencing it, makes
Yeah.
me think that it's almost like a special occasion. Like I take
Yeah.
time to do this actively,
Mhm.
whereas I would prefer to make this a reflex. I want this to be
Wow.
something that I do as a
Yes.
like something running in the background all the
Mhm.
time.
Mhm. No, that's
If
perfect.
I'm understanding you correctly.
Yes,
Okay,
yes. No,
good. Yeah.
you definitely are, because it's like e it's so funny, like, I will say that, like, today, my knee-jerk response is positivity, but it took me a long time to get there, and I would beat myself up being like, "Well, you have a year sober, and you're still so negative," and, like, all these things, and, like, I look back at myself, I'm like, "Why was I being so mean to me?" Like,
But honestly,
I
right?
mean
And to think too that a year of sobriety, what a tremendous thing. Now, granted, if we want to get all deep and woo woo about it, it's like, okay, a year is just a construct, blah, blah, blah.
right.
But we make that on purpose.
Mhm.
You have made a full lunar, like you've made the whole cycle. You've made a
Yeah.
one loop around, and here we are.
Mhm.
Well done. And
Yeah.
the fact, like, well, if I'd started earlier, or if I'd done this, or if
Uh
I'd done that, eh, right? It's just literally making stuff up so we don't feel good about the giant accomplishment that's literally sitting on our plate in front of us, piping hot, ready to be consumed.
Yes.
Enjoyed, relished,
Relished. I love
right?
that. Um,
Oh,
no, I think something else I want to mention is I you've briefly mentioned several times now like helping people. I would be nowhere without the community that I had before and after recovery. People like Carrie, people like my best friend Mia, like people who knew me before and knew me now. And I think there was a part of me that was either scared or resentful to have a community. I wanted to do everything all on my own. And I'm sure a lot of that was also like teen angst, like I need to go out on my own and I need to be this and I need to be that.
yes,
But I, I,
guilty.
so, I was so silly. Like I missed so many opportunities to just be with people because I was like, I have to go out on my own. But that is where I have found a lot of joy, especially, I used to hate the holidays. I really, really did. I
Oh,
tolerated Thanksgiving and hated Christmas, but this was actually the first year that I hosted Thanksgiving for my parents. And my roommate has a 4-year-old son who we'll get to see on Christmas, and we're really excited to set everything up for him. And I'm very blessed that I live with two people who are also in recovery. So it's nice to have that on such a home front. Um,
yes.
and so I just have to say that like I have found just like so much like unapologetic laughter and just like silliness and just truthfully like radical joy sitting in rooms like with people and like playing cards, and
Mhm.
like I never used to be that kind of person. And so I think that's kind of why I wanted to touch on it, is there is something so beautiful coming back to around to the idea of like I can't do this by myself and that's okay. And I've really like
Yeah.
loved coming back around to being like, I do need to rely on other people, and that's what community's for.
Ugh.
So yeah,
Yeah. And something you said there that just popped into my head and it made me so excited to share with you. It's so funny whenever you're young and less intelligent, because I think that's just the way the world works. It's wildly unfair, but I think that's very okay to say.
yeah,
Is that you think that there's strength in doing it by yourself. And if you ask others for help or depend on others for basically anything, it's a sign of weakness,
mm,
an indicator of, well, I couldn't do this without them. Whenever the harsh truth of the matter is, you probably can't. Could I do it without them? Chances are good I'll get about 80%.
right,
If I ask for a little help or ask for literally someone just to walk a parallel path while I'm doing this,
yeah,
how much faster, easier, and better the result would be if I had just not been a little chump, you know?
yes. Oh my
But
gosh,
that's part of the folly of growing up, you know?
right,
They always say that youth is wasted on the young, and the older I get, the more grumpy and get off my lawn I become. And there's also part of me that's just like, I'm so happy I can look back at that and appreciate the good parts of it,
yeah,
and also appreciate the wisdom and the calm, even though I'm still a very high energy
hmm,
individual, that comes with being more mature, a little bit farther down the loop. You're like, no, no, no. These connections are what make things so valuable.
hmm,
It's so precious to have these people in our lives that want to be a part of your progress.
yes,
Whether it's you recovering from addiction or whether it's, reaching your goals, your accomplishments, your
yeah,
dreams that you've told these very specific tribe about. It's so exciting to have people that are not only your accountability partners, but also
hmm,
your cheerleaders.
yeah. Like
They play so many wonderful roles.
it's and I feel and it goes back to like the whole getting older and maturing thing, and we're all maturing and we're all like just we are all trying our hardest at the same time, which is kind of so funny to think about. But
Right?
I feel very grateful that along the way, and especially today, I have so many people in my life who want everything for me and nothing from me, and I also can return that to them, and that's been like so powerful. Like I might like I it makes me emotional that like it just is so it's not based on transaction. And I feel
Yes.
like when you're in college, sometimes you kind of get trapped in that a little bit. Everyone is stressed, so stressed that it
Yes.
like kind of drives this.
Well, and trying to figure out their own thing too. Like,
Yeah.
people are trying so hard to figure out who they are, and even though they struggle for their independence, they're leaning so hard on everyone around them. It's just hard to see that until you get it in your rearview mirror.
Yeah.
And it's just, what did you just say? I want that on a t-shirt. That's so good. Everything for me and nothing
From
from me.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I am a huge fan of that turn of phrase. Wow. At least in the initial parts of it.
Yeah.
The thought of that is fantastic, because there's also part of me that's like, part of the instigation into the tribe for me is, if I've reached a point where you will ask something of me, that's when I
Yeah.
know I've moved past
Mhm.
into a different circle of friendship with this person, and I
Yeah.
love it. But initially, getting to know you into becoming the friend, that is a wonderful
Mhm.
touchstone for how this is going.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
Um,
Another thing you said that's very
yeah.
similar to that, I'm sorry if
Oh,
I
please,
may,
please, please,
it's,
please.
you said something about, you're checking it, your relationship with yourself is ever changing.
Mhm.
And that's something that we are always harping on here at Radical Joy. We're always like,
Yeah.
hey, you got to check in with yourself. Your dreams change, your ideas, your goals,
Stop.
where it is you're supposed to be. Always check in. Ask yourself the hard questions. Nobody likes it. They're helpful. It's like the Brussels sprouts of ideas. I love Brussels sprouts, but they're really good for you. And sometimes, you got to develop that flavor for it.
Yeah.
That you just got to continue to check in. Is this still the dream that I had? Being on Broadway was the dream for a long
Yeah.
time. Now, what is the dream? Have I met it? Have I exceeded it? Is it time to find a new one because this one doesn't serve? Like, all these kinds of things we have to continue to ask in order to make sure that we're up to date on the latest with how we're really feeling.
I That is so weird that you bring that up, that, like, checking in and that, like, your dreams and your goals and your plans are allowed to change. Because I feel like, for a while I not only told myself a narrative, but fed myself and was fed a narrative that was like, this is what success looks like. And
Oof.
that just is not true. And having this career shift, because basically I was at ASF and then I went back on contract and I started working with opera companies again. And I did that for about 10 months. And then this job opened up in Montgomery that's randomly kind of a government. Well, it is a government job. Which is so weird.
It's a government
It's
job.
so weird.
Yeah.
But it just, I, I had to, I had to get over that hump of like wanting to admit that like my dreams have changed and not care what people think. And I love, because I had to have that big moment of like, what do you really want? Like like what do you want to do? And also, just because you want to do it, for the next 3 years right now, doesn't like it. I just feel like it was such a good moment to realize that like I can have a lot of dreams. I can accomplish
Yes.
whatever. I can make a whole, right turn and go the other way. And I I have loved giving myself that permission, but also using that tool to be like, where am I standing right now? Like, am I, back to like the being honest thing, like, am I being honest, or am I going through the motions, or am I, being complacent and like just doing what I think people want from me and like that kind of thing.
Exactly. And so many of those things fall right into it. And it just, like you were saying, like, okay, is this my dream or is this the expected dream? Like, I moved to New York City to become a Broadway star. So that means if I don't become a Broadway star, I won't have reached the dream. However, if you don't check in with yourself to make sure that that was your dream to begin with and not just what was expected if you made that giant leap,
Hmm.
what does that mean? If you change your dream now, all of this other stuff is just treading water and spinning wheels. You have to pick a new dream and you have to go after that. And that is scary because
It's
I've been used to being in this space for so long, doing the things, biding time, etc.,
Yeah.
versus making the change. changing direction to go after the new dream. And what all does that entail? It's scary. It's terrifying because chasing one dream, I know the process.
Yeah.
I know the motions. If I just continue doing that, I might just slip and slide into my first Broadway contract, but maybe that isn't the thing.
Yeah.
And it's just something you said, today's dreams don't have to be forever.
Mhm.
What you said a minute ago, and I loved it. And pardon me, if you ever see me, my face go down and I start scribbling, that's what I'm just taking some note to remind
I
myself.
love it.
Today's dreams don't have to be forever. If you change your mind and decide that now I'm going to follow this government job
Mhm.
because it sounds wonderful, if in 1, 2, 3, 10 years it doesn't serve me any longer, I can go through this entire process again and reset my dream, my
Yeah.
goal. And I can go after that with wild abandon like I did this one. Or maybe in 3, 4, 10 years, whatever, something just literally falls into your lap because you've been chasing this dream
Mhm.
and somehow your whole thing has shifted in order to
Right.
put you right in the path
Yeah.
of whatever your new dream is going to be. And again, it's not fatalism. It's not me saying, well, I'm destined to. No, what it's saying is if you continue to follow your dreams with passion, when those start to change and evolve, something will show
Mhm.
you how that's happening and where to go in order to continue following it and growing in your passion.
Oh, yes. I
I believe that with every fiber.
It has taken me so long to what trust the process means to me, and also then to actively, like, live in that. Like, I you know,
Yeah.
I think, and I don't know if this was, I'm sure it is your part of your experience in theater, but it's always, I have to be looking to the next thing. I can not really
Oh
be
God.
present. Like like, yes, I'm doing a show. Yes, we're in rehearsals and we're in tech and then, like we're doing that, but it's like, what is the next contract? Where's my next job? What is my next XYZ? And so like, I feel like something that has been nice since stepping back from theater is like truthfully standing where I am and like enjoying something as it's happening. Because it's like I feel
Yes.
like I'll look back on some of the like most beautiful shows and internships, opportunities that I had, and I'm like, God, that was so great. But like in the moment, I was so just like it was like blinders on. Like I don't know, and that is not to diss on theater because I love theater. I will always love the arts. I will always love
Sure.
theater, but like there is something so beautiful being outside of that industry to be able to like be like, this is what I did today with this elementary school, and I enjoyed being there every single second. Like,
Yes.
and I
And that's just it. I
yeah,
think that whenever we move on to something else, I have this terrible habit of wanting to burn the bridge and just completely decimate anything that happened behind me. Uh-oh, am I reading somebody's mail? Is that what's happening
yes,
right now? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And whenever you started talking about that, I was like, I'll bet Natalie has a very similar situation. Let's just try this.
yeah,
I think that I have to hate it in order to leave it, and that could not be farther from the truth.
yeah,
I feel as though that I have to make a reason why it was just so awful that I
yeah,
had to move on from it instead of just saying, this is what I learned from this. This is what I took from this. And it was great. And it was
yeah,
nourishing and helpful and amazing. And now I am a different person. So
hmm,
it's time for me to move on to the next thing and
yeah,
give this all the love and honor it deserves and move on to the
yes,
next thing and grow into love and honor that.
yes. And it took me forever
And
to
it's
do that.
just, oh, right? Doesn't it? Because it's so easy to move on from something that you quote unquote
Yeah,
hate. This was such a chore. What a task. And it never has to be like that.
no,
It just has to be like, this was glorious while it lasted. I'm so grateful I had that opportunity and that experience. And now this is calling. And I'm running
yeah,
toward that, not
hmm,
away from the other.
yes.
And I'm like, yeah, yeah.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
and I want to just real quick come back to pick this up. ASF, for those of you who may or may not know, is the Alabama Shakespeare Festival located in Montgomery, Alabama.
Yes,
The
love
we with
them.
Natalie made mention of that acronym a little earlier, so I wanted to make sure that we told any of our listeners that weren't exactly familiar with that wonderful organization. It's absolutely fantastic. They
Yes.
put on some of the most incredible productions I have ever had the pleasure of witnessing. And she worked with them before
Mhm,
in a much more, I guess, how would we put that, a much more in-house
mhm.
experience, and now you work in a very similar capacity. If you wouldn't
Yeah.
mind telling us just a little bit more about that, I'd love it.
So what I was brought to ASF to do is I was the production management office coordinator. So I did a lot of finance, really. Actually, it was a lot of calendars and a lot of scheduling, and it was
Oh,
very adjacent to stage management. And I had this like big, my previous dream, and sometimes it kind of sneaks back in that maybe I'd like to do it again, is I wanted to be a director of production somewhere. I wanted to be a production manager. And that seems like the most logical step to take when applying for jobs with ASF. And so I worked there for about 14 months and my contract was up, and I was like, you know what? I want to try stage managing again. I was at such a weird point where I was like, I could stay at ASF, I could go back to stage managing. I didn't know what I wanted really, but it was like getting down to the wire of
mhm.
like either I sign these contracts or I don't. Like I don't think, I don't think I gave myself the time to like really think about what I wanted until I came back again and started working for the city. So
Yeah.
at the current moment now, what I do for ASF is if someone needs like a spot op, a dresser for an evening. I'm still very, very close with a lot of their I guess what they would be called is like shop heads. Like their
Mhm.
wig and makeup supervisor is the one who like did my hair. Like, it's I've just become I have such great friendships with them still that if they just need swing on crew people, that's kind of how I'm in the building. But I've just gotten to go see some shows. And that's been
Ah,
so cool. Like I realized I
right.
had never seen a show at ASF before I worked there, and I was like, "Is this what I've been missing?" Like I just started working there. I was
Right?
like, What's happening?"
Right.
So it was,
No, exactly, and it's so many times, especially as artists and creators, like,
yeah,
we will work at a venue long before we ever see art performed at the venue,
and I
and it's just so funny because I never thought about it. I was like, "Yeah, that makes all the sense looking back." In the
yeah,
beginning, you're just like, "Well, of course, if I get the opportunity, that's delicious, but what I wanna do is go show up and get paid. I wanna make the art."
right,
There's something so lovely about getting to consume the art and appreciate it.
yes, and
Yeah.
not be worried about something because the background detail of whatever's happening. Like
Okay.
I love just sitting there and watching and enjoying, and then going home, which is like like kind of a
Yes.
selfish need, but I love it. I'm like, this was beautiful. I'm gonna go home.
How is that even selfish? That's so delicious because sometimes I just wanna eat the sausage. I don't wanna know how it's made.
Yes.
Just let me eat the sausage. And it's just so funny because that's not something people think about, it is a job to us a lot
Yeah.
of times in the arts that you show up, you do the thing, and, like, I had never been on a cruise ship before I had to work on a cruise
Oh my
ship
gosh,
doing
yeah.
shows. And so it's just one of those things, like, sometimes you miss the pleasure of it because
Yeah.
you are the one in the background making the magic happen,
Mhm.
which has its own honor and
Yeah.
its own grace. And then it's just so nice to be the person who pays the money, sits in the seat, and enjoys it when the lights go down. And I just disconnect from all
Yes.
vestiges of reality and just lose myself in the story for 2.5 hours
Oh,
and maybe get an adult beverage during the intermission. And then I go right back to it. Yeah, glorious.
um,
Yeah.
I swear, like it just is so. It's been able to give me something I feel like I haven't had since I was really before college. Like, because
Yeah.
I can't remember, like the last time I was in that situation where I didn't at least know some, like, and now it's just been like I can just
Right.
um but what I do now for the city is, we're still kind of trying to hammer that out, I think. The department,
Hey.
you know, um, what I used to do used to be a part of Parks and Rec. And, all of what the Department of Cultural Affairs is now was a bunch of different um, parts of the other offices coming together. So it is the Learning Arts Center, which is in downtown Montgomery. It is all of our libraries. It's all of our museums, and it's city events. So we have like a really cool, like kind of just it's all like arts and education based, and we kind of just all are in the same little circle together. Um, but kind of what my day to day looks like is it's a lot of hiring teaching artists to go into specific schools and implement like some different programming. So recently we've been working a lot towards musical theater, but we've also been working a lot towards dance. So that's those are two that we're really, really looking at. But I also know that a big project that I'm actually excited for that I know nothing about because I don't know really even what economic development means. But I'm learning, and I've sat in so many meetings and I'm learning so, which is like so kind of nerdy and cool. But they want to do like a mural project, and so it's like getting to see like this very
Oh,
like what I wouldn't consider like an artsy thing at like, and then but then as it's like they make these incredible diagrams and drawings of like how they want to design like a city street. Like I've gotten to know so many things that I never would even consider because I was just like, oh, that's an office job, or that's like a big boy, big girl job. And now I'm like, oh no, this is actually one of the coolest things ever. Like, so there's been a lot of
you know,
joy learning. Just I hope I never lose that like itch to want to learn something. Like I'm just one of those
good.
people that like, you know what, even if I'm not good at that, I'm gonna try to crochet. Or you know what, I'm at least gonna watch some YouTube videos on this. Like I just want to know how things work, and I hope that never goes away.
I think that probably one of the biggest ways to make sure that never goes away is to continue
Yeah.
looking at it like that.
Hmm.
I hope I never. Great.
Yeah.
I think you've just put it in the world. You've just manifested it. You've
Yes.
literally just paved the way to make sure you don't. I've got a good buddy, and I've talked about this once or twice here. She's like, he prides himself on being very good at being wrong.
Ooh,
And I think that being able, right?
I like
Isn't that
it.
great? I talked to him just yesterday, as a matter of fact. And though we don't talk about it often, I don't think he knows how highly I esteem that idea specifically.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things like, I aspire to be good at that because if I'm wrong, I get twisted as hell. I'm just like, oh, I just hate it. I just hate it. Oh, I hate it. I want to be better at it because wrong is just the first step on learning to do it better and
Yes.
learning to do it correctly.
Oh gosh. I
And instead, I just get my butt on my shoulders and I'm just like, well, I quit.
what?
This is stupid. No, it's not. You just didn't do it right in the first try, you absolute infant. Knock it off, quit pouting, and go back to the drawing room.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's so funny because it's like I I live in, well, I try not to live in, but like I didn't realize how like in fear I was of certain things and just concepts in general. But like you bring up that whole like I'm afraid of failing. That was a big thing that I like had to work through with my sponsors. Like, I'm afraid of failing. Well, what does that really mean? And it was like, I'm afraid of being wrong because that hurts my
Yep.
ego. And then I was like, but what's wrong with being wrong? Like it's literally what you just said. Like I love that. It's the first step in learning how to do it better. Like, oh, I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's so easy to do that whenever I have somebody to talk to, and it's not just me in my own head thinking, "What a fool, what a goon, you look like a ridiculous human."
Yeah.
Instead of just, giving myself a little grace, like, "This is the first time you've ever tried it. It's gonna be fine. You just have to take a few more swings of this ball. You can't knock it out of the park on the first attempt, okay?
Hmm.
Breathe." And I never wanna breathe. I just wanna be excellent at everything the first swing, and if it's not, well, screw it. I'm gonna treat it like a cat would something he finds in a litter box or deposits in a litter box. I'm just gonna scratch some dirt over it and walk away. It's like, "No, done. I don't want this anymore. I tried it once. I wasn't amazing at it, so screw it. I'm done."
Done.
No, no, that's not how life works. Right. It's like, "No, could you stop?" Oy. But there's another thing that you mentioned a little bit earlier that I loved so much. You said that you were unapologetic.
Yeah.
You said something about unapologetic laughter, coming
Hmm.
together with friends and loved ones and whatever, and just offering these parts of yourself that were before just a little bit hidden, a little bit quelled.
Yeah.
And the fact that now that you offer these things unapologetically. And I just love that. I think that's such a wonderful thing. There's a million ways that we could approach this. Something that a turn of phrase that I used to use. I don't love it as much as I used to, but I was just like, if I'm not bleeding, I don't need your apology.
Ooh.
It's one of those things where if it really wasn't an injury, if it wasn't something that you threw at me maliciously with intent or malicious intent,
Mhm.
there's no reason for you to apologize to me. If my feelings are hurt because of something you said out of pure, just wanting to communicate an idea, chances are very good that's a me problem and not a your problem.
Mhm.
So I think it's so important that that idea of just shameless, if that's something I could
Yes.
sort of like parallel,
Mhm, mhm.
it's like I'm so sick of being ashamed of literally any of it.
Yes.
Some things I will hold on to a little bit longer because I feel as though maybe that could have hurt someone
Mhm.
or it trespassed on someone who I didn't intend on doing that to. And that's something that I'm going to have to make my peace with and or make amends with that person.
Yeah.
I think that if we walk so carefully, gingerly, etc., through life because we're afraid of the shame
Yeah.
or of having to offer apology for it, I think that we're not really doing ourselves the full service.
No, it's what I've discovered within that is, like, I feel like people tend to assume the worst too. They assume you're, like, saying this to hurt them, when it's like, I wish everyone could take the more, like, positive mind frame of, like, it's not coming from a place of malice. Like, I can't tell you how many situations where I'm like, I got offended over a joke, like a funny conversation, and it's like that wasn't as deep as I made it out to be, and like they were being their authentic selves. I just love what you said, that it's just like we are doing ourselves a disservice. Like, absolutely.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
and this is never to say, being my authentic self, there are boundaries and people
Yeah.
have them and I want to honor them. If I know about them, of course, I'm going to do my dead level best to respect them and be very,
Absolutely.
very faithful to them.
Yeah.
And then, if there's no way I could know something,
Yes.
I appreciate the grace that someone informs me, and then I will correct myself moving forward until it becomes rote, and then it's not an issue any longer.
Exactly.
It's like, okay, cool. And I think that if we give ourselves that kind of
Ooh,
leniency
yeah.
for a lot of the things in our lives,
Mhm.
we'll continue to improve. It's not that I'm forgiving it. What I'm doing is forgiving it this time
Yeah.
in an effort to make it part of who I am in the future. It's
Mm.
like, oh, okay, yeah, that I can do. I can
Yeah.
work to make myself bigger so that I can also encompass whatever this thing is to make sure moving forward that I don't have to worry about shame or guilt or malice or any of
Ooh,
those things because
yeah.
that's not who I want to be.
No.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh.
I I don't know. I've just enjoyed this so much. I don't know which direction I was gonna go next, but I'm here to answer anything. And I literally was just like, wow.
Well, thank you. And
Yeah.
that's really all. Like I said, we start in one spot, we meander a bit, just like a little babbling brook. And then whenever we get to where we're going, we usually find the gold in the bottom that we can pan out to use for something valuable.
Yeah.
And I think we found it. I'm like, great, yeah. This is the kind of stuff. You look at the lives of others and you're like, wow, I'm really glad I didn't have to go through that. I said, hey, maybe it's not your journey. That isn't what you needed in order to become the fully formed person that you really, really wanted to be. And how wonderful is that? Different people have different fires that they have to put their ore into in order to become the finished product.
Yeah.
And the best part of it, it's so important that we're not that green teen any longer, that we
Mhm.
grow into our full adulthood and we continue to grow into it because we're never finished. We're not alone.
Yeah.
We've always got somebody close to us. And if you're feeling alone, if you put out some feelers, the chances are good someone's going to pick up on it. Now,
Yeah.
that okay, here's a candid. Usually whenever I put out feelers to the world at large, the person who answers is not the person I expected,
Mhm.
and it's not always the person I thought I wanted. Just so we're clear.
Yeah.
However, that being said, a lot of times it is exactly the person I needed.
Yes.
They're the person who has the most desire to be there. They're the person who has the most experience in what you're dealing with. Or if they're not, they at least have the ears and the shoulders to listen and bear that problem with you.
Oh, yes. And I also, to add to what Carrie said, like, I know it is so hard to reach out, even to put out feelers, but, like, it is an incredible brave thing to do, and, like, I always want people to keep doing it. Like, I would rather
Yeah.
you walk through that fear to me or to someone else you trust than sit in that. Like, I don't want you to sit in it alone, like, ever.
Yeah. Well, and again, back to that thing that you said earlier that just absolutely thrills me. I mean, sent me to the moon. Everything for me and nothing from me.
Mhm.
This is where we do that flip. This is where
Yeah.
the switch goes from off to on. If this is what it is that you're dealing with and you feel that I am the person to help you,
Mhm.
this is what I have to offer.
Yes.
Nothing from me does not apply to this.
Mhm.
This is where you come to me and you say, hey, I am dealing with X, and you are the person I feel who is uniquely qualified to help me with this. I don't know what that looks like. This is what I'm going through. Do you have something to offer? Or however you want to phrase it. That's me talking.
No, I love
There's a million different ways to say it. I just think that there's a way to invite someone in that's not even a request for help. It's an invitation to walk with me while I figure this
ooh,
out, and I think it'd be better with you.
yes, yes. Uh, shoulder to
So,
shoulder. I love that.
right? I love that. And yeah, the way you said it, just shoulder to shoulder, because the way I feel it, like so many of my friends, I'm not a tall guy, I'm not a big guy. And so
Yeah,
whenever I put my, arm around somebody, it's usually shoulder to shoulder. Or
yeah,
I've got a lot of taller friends. It'll be, my arm around their waist and I'll be in their pit. Great.
yeah.
It's just that thought. It's not just that we're walking side by side, but it's also the fact that we have linked somehow. We've made
Yes.
that connection physically, emotionally, or if not physically, at least the emotion that I have in my head, the picture I have of it whenever they're helping me with this, through this, is that
Mhm.
the shoulder to shoulder with arms around and just
Oh,
holding on,
yes.
so we don't drift.
So don't
Like otters holding
Ah,
hands while they sleep.
I
Yeah.
love those. Ah, you're just like doo-doo-doo.
Right.
Amazing.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Natalie, thank you so much for
Thank
being with us on
you.
Radical Joy Suite. What a wonderful, wonderful visit. Thank
Yes.
you.
I deeply appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me. This has been just incredible, truthfully. I'm deeply grateful.
Thank you. Gosh, yeah, because that's just it. What I hope that we get to share, you and I,
Yeah.
while we're having this conversation, I hope is going to spill out over the airwaves and wherever people are listening, phone or car or computer or whatever. I hope that the inspiration and the admiration that I feel for you right now is going to kind of like wash over onto them. Folks, I realize we're living in a tough time. People are crazy busy. If you're listening to this whenever it goes out, I know it's stressful. I know we got a lot of stuff to think about. There's a lot on our plates. Hey, we get it. This is for all of us to enjoy, take a breath, and sort of live in the fact that we're just doing the dadgum best we can. And more often than not, that is more than sufficient.
Mm. Mhm.
So whenever you listen to this, it is going to be the holiday time. It's going to be around Valentine's Day, just
Hey!
about the time that all of us
Love!
solo flyers. Ooh, ooh. If you're feeling lonely, great. Hey, we're here for it,
Yes.
friends. Solo does not have to mean lonely. We love you guys. If you are here with us for the first time, thank you so much for joining us here on Radical Joy. What a wonderful debut episode to tune in to listen. If this is not your first time, welcome back. Thank you so much for thinking enough of what we do here to come back to visit us again. We're so glad that you're here. If you're a review type person, please by all means go to wherever platform that you're listening and make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Whenever you do that, make sure you take a screenshot and send it to us so that we can send you a token of our thanks, more than likely a sticker with my face on it drinking coffee, so we can say thank you for being a part of our community, part of our tribe. Put it on your journal, put it on your water bottle, put it on your laptop, put it wherever it is you want to put it. It's hot pink. Gosh knows you're going to have a hard time missing it. But regardless, we just want to say thank you for joining us. We want to say thank you to Natalie for being our incredible guest today. Thank you to Carrie for orchestrating this entire wonderful experience. And we just want to make sure that everyone listening and those of you who want to share the word with your friends and neighbors and loved ones and colleagues, we love you all. The bottom line is, use your words, friends. Thank you for joining us again in this moment of radical joy. If this is your first time, we're so happy you're here. Take a moment to check out our archive, see if there's something else that fires you up, rekindles the joy in you. And hey, spread the word if you enjoyed it. We welcome reviews and messages. Let me know what you want to talk about. I rarely run out of things to say. So if there's something on your mind or heart, I want to hear from you. Don't forget, there is no shame in joy. I am not a therapist or a medical professional. If you're experiencing a mental health emergency, please call 911. This content and other content produced by CLW Studios and affiliated partners is not therapy, and nothing in this content indicates a therapeutic relationship. Any opinions of guests on this podcast are their own and do not represent the opinions of James or CLW Studios. Please consult with your therapist or seek one in your area if you're experiencing mental health symptoms. Anything in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Learn more about James and CLW Studios. Follow the link in the show notes. Don't forget to leave a review, and hey, we'll send you a sticker. Just send a screenshot and let us know where you want it sent. Have a great week, and we will see you next Wednesday for another dose of radical joy. Love y'all.